Created by an east coast low, the big swells rolled in across the Tasman today, arriving with full force on Stockton Beach.
Damaging surf conditions with waves exceeding 5 metres in the surf zone are likely to produce significant beach erosion between Newcastle and Laurelton.
There's not much room to sunbake at Stockton as it is, but by the weekend there'll be even less. Some shipping movements were cancelled today because of the heavy conditions. Tugboats copped a battering as they briefly entered the open sea, and even the largest of bulk carriers didn't escape a pounding as large swells broke well offshore. Inside the harbour, surfers crowded the water, all keen to get a rare wave that only breaks a few times a year when the swell is large enough. Newcastle's Reece Smith was one of many braving the sucky waves and treacherous rock shelf below.
Yeah, you just got to go. You don't hesitate, you just go. It's a bit of a hassle out there today, a few bodyboarders and surfers all mixed in.
Fishermen gathered beside Shortland Esplanade to catch blackfish in the fast-moving water. The swell is expected to ease over the next 48 hours. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's a well-known fact that being overweight increases the risk of heart disease and diabetes. So, with obesity levels in Australian women now at a record high, experts are concerned that it will translate into a diabetes epidemic in the near future.
At the moment, with the younger women who are now in their mid to late 20s, it's about a third of them. And for the middle-age group, we're looking at about half the women are technically overweight.
Dr. Anne Young is just one of many researchers from across the nation involved in the Australian longitudinal study on women's health, which was started at the University of Newcastle in 1996. They've been following a group of 40,000 women for 9 years, and in that time they've recorded an average weight gain of about 1 kilogram per woman per year. Some have even been diagnosed with diabetes during the study. The national study has also found that women who are overweight or obese are twice as likely to develop diabetes. The researchers say weight gain can partly be attributed to women living faster-paced lifestyles, many opting for fast, unhealthy food.
I think women are still the main provider of cooking in the household, and yes, women have busy lives. We're looking at multiple roles and the way women balance their work and life, so I think that's part of it too.
They're urging women to eat fresh food more often and exercise regularly. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. The rides are in their usual place. They've been given a last-minute maintenance check. Now they're just waiting to be ridden. Gates open at the Newcastle Regional Show at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
The ride area is all set up. The show bag area that's being moved in now, and we've got about 200 to 300 volunteers on the ground getting everything prepared.
And preparations of a different kind were happening in the ring. This cardboard wall was doused in petrol and set alight, ready for a brave young man to go through it head first. Motocross will be another event this weekend at the show, where 12 cars will hopefully be cleared in one jump. Meanwhile, it was busy work setting up the pavilions this afternoon. Some of the judging has already taken place, and organisers are confident the glory days of regional shows are far from over.
It's bringing the country to the city. People like to come and see the animals and see the exhibits, and it's really the only time of the year where all that comes together.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News. It's the largest bread show in New South Wales, and these judges have to smell hundreds of loaves in order to find the best. They say taste testing isn't necessary.
If they're tasting 600 loaves of bread at a bread show, it gets a little bit filling. So you can tell by the smell of the loaf as to whether it's going to be good eating.
But cakes must be sampled. There's all the usual sweet treats found at bakeries, including profiteroles, slices and mouth-watering mud cakes, giving the judges' taste buds a workout.
It is a hard job. If you see the size of me, I've done it for quite a few years, so tasting them, and the pies too, because we do taste the pies and the sausage rolls. Yeah.
The show is run by the New South Wales Baking Industry Association, and winning an award can mean big business for bakers. But just entering the event can also provide important feedback.
They come along after the show and they see who's winning, and they come and ask us questions, and a lot of them take it away and improve on that.
So, who makes the best bread and cakes? TAFE apprentice Josh Davey from Cessnock took out 10 awards, including Most Successful Bread Exhibitor. The Tartlet Patisserie at the entrance was awarded Most Successful Cake and Pastry Exhibitor, and the Finding Nemo themed edible design was awarded Best Novelty Cake. Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
In what was the calm before the storm, solid 1 to 2 metre waves was all Luke Munro needed to tame the world's best. Mick Fanning couldn't quite catch the wild card in the sudden death heat as Munro cruised through to set up a third round showdown with reigning world champion Andy Irons. Kelly Slater went to all sorts of lengths to give himself every chance, and it seemed to work. Not winning here since 1998, the 31-year-old former world champion looked right at home, easily accounting for American wildcard Dane Reynolds, well on his way to breaking his Snapper Rocks drought.
That's the first heat I can remember in a while out here where I really felt like, I just felt like the waves were going to come to me. In the last couple of years, I feel like I've really fought through heats.
The Gold Coast's Joel Parkinson was among the second round winners, but he was certainly made to work for it.
I was pretty much back on the ropes there for a while, but I was so lucky. I seen that wave coming. I was like, please have some length on it, and it didn't have much, but it had enough, so.
And Byron Bay's Denny Wills can breathe a little easier tonight, also through to the third round, which will take place tomorrow, conditions permitting. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Making the switch from rugby league to boxing is becoming somewhat of a popular trend, and one former Nelson Bay forward, Mick Auld, plans to give his best shot.
I was just looking for a change, mate. I'm a bit over the football scene, so I thought I'd give this a go.
The former first grader turned heavyweight is among 7 debutants to make an appearance at the Mayfield Ex-Servicemen's Club this Saturday night. Their opponents hail from the far north and central coasts and Sydney, many of which have a string of fights already to their name.
Some of the Newcastle fighters are taking on one or two guys who've had 1 or 2 boxing matches, so they've got the job ahead of them.
16-year-old welterweight Troy Lodge is another to make the step, as is Wallsend's Carl Reid Seamer in the light heavyweight division.
Some will go on professional, some will just come in, have a good time, get a trophy and have their friends come along and have a generally good time at it.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Royce Cornell was back home today doing what he loves best, practicing baseball. The Year 6 student has made a remarkable turnaround from just 2 weeks ago when he fell out of the emergency exit of a bus.
I'm amazed that Royce is alive because you don't fall out the back of a bus at 75 k's an hour and survive.
The accident happened just 400 metres from the family home at Williamtown. Fortunately, when Royce landed on the road, he was still on top of the Perspex window, but his father says it should serve as a warning to others.
But I'd like to make other people aware that these things can happen. It's probably never happened before that anyone's gone through an emergency window, but shouldn't people look into that?
The family has experienced more pain than most. Royce is the only child after his 2 brothers and sister Rhea died from cystic fibrosis. While the family has praised the staff at the John Hunter Hospital for Royce's recovery, they believe his older sister was also watching over him that day.
My daughter was up there, kicking bum. She always did with Royce, and this one she probably was looking after him too.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
24 isn't exactly old, but when you're an NRL rookie, every minute counts. For David Siege, the time has finally come, with the former Brisbane-based recruit named on the bench for Friday night's opening round clash with Premiers Penrith.
I didn't think I had the chance, mate, but I was hoping to sort of get a start through the year, but the first game's just a bonus, mate.
Now it's a waiting game ahead of Penrith and a packed Panthers stadium.
As soon as he sort of told me and we had the launch and stuff like that, the nerves started to kick in and started to realise what's going to happen and that.
Former Test centre Russell Richardson knows all about what to expect, but not unlike his younger teammate, the former Sharks and Rabbitohs back feels like he has some lost time to account for.
It's a great opportunity for me to make things right in my career, and there's been times where I've been high and times where I've been low, and this is probably the happiest I've been for a long time.
A starting spot in this back line, a far cry from South's First Division, where he spent time last season.
I can't wait to play in such a great side. It's been a while since I've played in a really, really strong side where you're expected to win each week, and hopefully I can be part of the culture.
Great news late today for Matt Parsons, with the dual Dally M winning prop of the year given the green light from specialists to play on Friday night. The club will give Ben Kennedy until the last minute to recover from an ankle problem. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Just last month, Horizons Golf Resort was the centre of attention, hosting the rich ANZ Championship, but tonight it's teetering on the brink of collapse. Owed an estimated $8 million, American-based bank Textaron placed the resort's owners, New Horizons Corporation, into receivership on Friday night and appointed KPMG as administrator. It's a fair mess. Besides the offshore bank, the Australian Tax Office is owed around $4.5 million, while a range of suppliers and other unsecured creditors make up the balance of the $14 million total debt. Employing some 110 staff at the resort, KPMG representatives' main priority today was to ensure wages were brought up to date, but they're hoping the resort can trade its way out of trouble. However, they didn't rule out the option of finding a buyer for the property, which includes an 18-hole course, restaurant and golf amenities, but surprisingly not the accommodation. Director of New Horizons Corporation, Antonio Gelanesi, took over the golf resort in November 2000 and struck financial problems last year with National Soccer League team Northern Spirit, of which he's the majority shareholder, which was also placed into administration. Gelanesi has appointed a separate firm to handle unsecured creditors, with a meeting to be set down within 5 to 7 days. As for the $100,000 ALPG Tour event, scheduled to start Thursday, it's been cancelled. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Home to the $100,000 Australian Ladies Professional Golf Tournament that was to tee off at Horizons on Thursday, the future of several other major tournaments is now also shaky. The New South Wales Men's Open, revived last year, was to remain here until 2005, while the success of last month's $1.75 million ANZ Championship had it tipped to win a second such hosting. Horizons also backs touring professional Cherie Burns, whose immediate future is now also in doubt. She's due to leave for America and Europe for a range of tournaments next month. And Horizons had a significant sponsorship with the Newcastle Knights. However, the rugby league club would not disclose if it was among creditors owed money today. The football club are among those hoping for recent good weather to remain, with a Supercross track to be built on Energy Australia Stadium ahead of Saturday night's event. This was the horrible sight at Wollongong for the weekend round, but with the recent sunshine expected to stick around for a while yet, the ground should dry in time for the tons of dirt that will be needed for the track to be made. Nelson Bay's Dean House just loves the waters of Lake Budgewoi on the Central Coast. That's where he won round 2 of the Australian Formula One Superboat Series yesterday after taking out all 3 races to defeat defending champion Shane Vella from Penrith and Tasmanian Todd Leary.
It was a traumatic experience for these men, today happy to be safe and sound back on dry land.
Pretty exhausted, run down, but that's it. We're glad to be alive.
Sean Taylor, Steve Hack and Steve's younger brother Adam, who was released from hospital this morning, had planned a pleasant day of scuba diving near beautiful Broughton Island, just off Port Stephens. They were in search of grey nurse sharks yesterday morning when they became caught in a strong southerly current. The 3 men were swept about 500 metres south of their boat and eventually clambered their way onto a rocky outcrop off Broughton Island to rest. Their unmanned 5-metre-long boat took on water and was battered by strong winds. It overturned and sank. The men were left stranded on rocks, suffering cuts to their hands and feet, Steve needing 10 stitches for his right hand.
We thought we'd sort of settle down in one spot, so if they did search, we went all over the place and just waited. And then Steve made the comment as the sun went down that we're here in for a long haul.
And he was right. The search and rescue mission began at 4 p.m. yesterday. They were eventually found at 7:30 this morning.
The first smaller chopper, Westpac Rescue One, came around. Then they saw us assess the situation, and then all of a sudden we saw the big one come round, and that was the greatest feeling of my life.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Depends entirely on these other influences.
As far as I'm concerned, if I'm fit, I'll play. You know, if it's a bit sore but totally functional and has all its strength.
When steelmaking ended at BHP Newcastle in 1999, there was local and national anxiety over what impact losing a major industry would have on the hunter. It prompted state and federal governments to establish the $10 million Hunter Advantage Fund to attract business and jobs to the region and made the Premier a frequent visitor to showcase his government's successes.
4 years on, Bob Carr argues the Hunter has avoided an unemployment crisis.
But look at the unemployment. We have driven unemployment down in the Hunter. That's a positive story. And we've done it by creating a good investment climate in the region.
And that investment has come from small to medium businesses which have opened their doors here. However, a number of major projects, from new steel industry investment to the multi-purpose shipping terminal, remain little more than ideas on paper. The Premier says he's done all he can to deliver them.
We cannot force investors at the point of a bayonet to build a factory. We can give them the infrastructure, we can give them the zoned and serviced land, we can give them the planning certainty. That's the role of government.
While the loss of Aussteel puts a significant dent in the government's tally of jobs that could be created, even Bob Carr admits he's now got work to do.
We're going to continue to work hard at it. We're doing everything possible to haul in private sector investment.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
"70 TAFE employees from campuses all over the Hunter Valley staged industrial action in Newcastle in an effort to send a clear message to the management of the Hunter Institute of TAFE. And with their protest set up directly outside management's office, their opinions surely would have been heard. 50 jobs have been axed in the Hunter Institute of TAFE alone, substantially more than any other institute in the state. The cuts don't involve teaching staff, but those employed in TAFE services such as administration, accounting and library services. The protesters want all 50 staff to be reinstated.
We don't think it's too late for management to reverse their decision, and we want to put pressure on management to do so and make them realise the impact of these cuts.
They say staff losses in the Student Service Centre mean TAFE students themselves will be the major losers.
Student Service Centres do all the functions for students, like enrolments, their exam results, their TAFE cards, their fees, all of those things. And if we take jobs out of those places, we can imagine that, or we can foresee that students won't get the same level of service.
Representatives will take up the issue with the Department of Education in Sydney. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
They've spent the week on the road, and last night was an opportunity to let their hair down Hawaiian style. But there's a serious reason behind the partying. The business people and individuals, including a few familiar faces, are hoping to raise $50,000 for the Wesley Mission suicide prevention program, Life Force.
There's nothing more precious than life, and there's nothing more disastrous than somebody taking their own life. We believe that with the program that we've been running in country areas, we've been able to reduce the incidence of suicide, particularly amongst young people between 18 and 25 years of age.
So we do one night of workshop with the general public, and then we do a professional workshop with our psychologists and everything.
The statistics of suicide are staggering. It's worse than the nation's road toll. In fact, on average, 220 people attempt suicide and 7 succeed every day. But experts say it's never too late to stop someone taking their own life.
We believe that right to the last moment, there's always an opportunity to recognise that somebody has a problem and to step in and do something about it.
Anyone wishing to donate to the prevention program can contact 9263 5425. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
It was backyard blitz, but on a grand scale at Energy Australia Stadium as manpower and machine dumped, then moulded, the thousands of tonnes of dirt required for a world-class Supercross track. Teams began arriving as well, and there was none more impressive than the leading team in both the 250cc and 125cc class. All up, you'd get little change from $1 million if you were to fund this truck and its high-powered contents, but it seems money well spent. 18-year-old Ryan Marmont leads the Pro Light division in his first year as a pro, while older brother Jay is leading the Pro Open Series, which he won last year.
It's really special, it's great having Ryan out there and me out there. We can train together, we can practice together. Now we can also race together on the same team, so it's a buzz.
Rising through the ranks, Ryan would love to saddle up next to his brother in the main class someday as well.
We've had a few races together, but like I said, I wasn't pro at the time, but we train together. He's a bit quicker than me at the moment, so hopefully I can pick my speed up.
It may mean chasing him to the US as Jay eyes the ultimate prize of racing on the Rich American Tour.
Like everyone knows Chad Reed, he's from this area and everyone admires and loves him for what he's done over there, so I want to go there and try and follow in his footsteps.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Police arrived at the aptly named Crooks Road address at 2 p.m. yesterday. They ran into difficulty when two suspects refused to let them inside the premises.
The police subsequently made application for a search warrant. During that time, the two offenders actually ran into the shed just over to our right here and barricaded the shed and actually set fire to some drugs within the premises.
On the top level of the barn, 4 rooms and rows of plastic pots that had contained thousands of thriving cannabis plants.
There was 2,050 plants removed from the premises, all in various stages of growth.
Keeping them alive was a sophisticated hydroponic setup of watering systems, ducted air conditioning and hundreds of lights.
It's the most elaborate and sophisticated setup that I've ever seen.
An operation of this scale doesn't come cheap. A globe like this one retails for around $100 by itself, so a hydroponic setup like this is worth more than $500,000. The offenders, 2 men aged 49 and 44, had bypassed electricity meter inspections by running the entire setup from a $300,000 fuel-powered generator. Investigations will continue tomorrow and the 2 men will appear in Newcastle Local Court on Monday. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
That we're the only club in the league that operates at a profit. We're the only club that's not supported by a leagues club or by the News Limited, and for us to turn a profit is quite extraordinary.
When it comes to the local environment, it seems everyone has an opinion.
Too many buildings going up in Newcastle and not enough worried about the waterways and things like that.
Getting the balance right is pretty important, but in the long run the environment's got to take precedence.
The state government today released the results of its latest phone survey on green issues. After surveying 1,400 people across the state, it found the environment rated 6th on people's priority list, behind health, education and public transport.
Their knowledge has grown over the last decade, so we're much more aware of environmental issues than we were back in 1994. And people are increasing their environmentally friendly behaviours, but not at the pace that we need to in order to stop the damage that we're causing.
The report found that consumption of energy and water was still too high, but locally not too important.
However, in the Hunter, people are particularly focused on air quality issues. And although they've seen some improvements over the last few years in air quality, as well as the quality of their beaches, they're still concerned about air quality in the local area.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
flashing? He's in the middle of the screen.
The Muswellbrook Regional Arts Centre has become home to the Max Watters collection. Over the past 40 years, the local tradesman, who became a nationally known painter in his own right, amassed over 300 artworks, a collection he now wants to bring lasting benefits to the Upper Hunter.
It's for the town, for tourism, for job creation and for education purposes.
Only a third of the diverse collection is currently on display. It includes the Bob Dickerson, the Got Max collecting art. The painting was given to him by his brother as repayment of a loan. The Watters perspective of the Upper Hunter is also showcased. The region's newest philanthropist now hopes the wide array of styles and artists will leave an impression.
Well, if they're interested in art in any form, it's here. And they should go out of here motivated. If not, I think they need treatment.
Also adding to Muswellbrook's public art stocks is the town's reconciliation mural in Simpson Park. The 17-metre wide work by local artists George Anderson, Les Elvin, Brad Franks and John Neville chronicles the dream time, the impact of European settlement and reconciliation between black and white Australians. Gary Blair, NBN News.
You know, 1% reduction may mean $1 billion reduction over 1 year in the commercial aviation sense. So these are huge gains.
The $250 million Lee Wharf development is the next major project earmarked for Honeysuckle. While Newcastle Council isn't the approval authority, councillors have spent the past month wrangling over their opinion on the 5-building proposal. They've now decided Planning Minister Craig Knowles should consider holding a commission of inquiry into the development. But Lord Mayor John Tate argues the case hasn't been justified.
Just because you say you want a commission of inquiry doesn't mean that it will happen. I really doubt that there will be one because there's no grounds to have one.
The Friends of Honeysuckle, which is fighting for a rethink of development guidelines, has welcomed the council about face and now awaits ministerial intervention.
That motion has been sent by council to the minister, and I think it would be a brave minister who said no to that after it's been requested twice in effect.
Spokesman for the developer, Alan Taylor, says while the Lee Wharf Consortium is disappointed with council, he remains optimistic about the project's future.
It always is a much better outcome, I think, if council has supported it, as opposed to having someone else impose their will on our city. But it complies with council's own development control plan. That's all we've done.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Parramatta hasn't been the happiest of hunting grounds for the Knights, thumped by the Eels this time last year in a match most would rather forget. Tamana Tahu didn't play in that game. Nonetheless, he's hoping to square things up, but the man they call the Guru stands in his way.
Against Parramatta, they'll be confident. He'll be confident as well, after the win against the Broncos on the weekend. So, it'll be a good little matchup.
Eric Groth expects there to be many one-on-one battles all over the park. And up against Tahu, the 23-year-old's certainly done his homework.
I watched him actually on the weekend. He killed it. He was good last time I played against him too, so I'll have to be on my toes.
Back home, the remaining work on the Eastern Grandstand at Knights headquarters will start mid-April, with the ISC Trust today naming Hunter-based construction company John Holland to finish off the job.
The staff at Raymond Terrace High School didn't want the media to see this, but a police officer had to be placed on today's after-school bus service to Lemon Tree Passage to ensure the students behaved. The action followed yesterday's trip home that got out of control at Saltash.
Food fights, objects being thrown. Got to a point that the driver couldn't tolerate the behaviour any further. 2 police cars were dispatched to the scene to assist in addressing the behavioural issue with the children.
It wasn't just the bus driver who became distraught. Children from a local primary school also riding on the bus were traumatised.
We've got police travelling on the service to assist to ensure the safety and well-being of both the passengers and the driver. is maintained until such time that this incident's resolved.
The buses are supposed to be safe for the children, and we're going to try and work with the bus company to ensure they are.
The bus service picks up each day from St Bridget's Catholic Primary School, Irrawang High School and Raymond Terrace High. The children involved in yesterday's rowdy trip face a range of disciplinary measures.
Passes can be withdrawn if kids abuse those privileges.
This is a very serious incident, and that's why the response has to be very swift and has to be very appropriate.
Retired swimmer Daniel Kowalski was among the 360 competitors to test the ocean waters off Caves Beach this morning. Starting at Spoon Rocks, the men were the first to take the plunge, heading north towards the Caves Beach Surf Lifesaving Club. There, Deke Zimmerman from Sydney was the first to surface, taking a shade under 16 minutes to complete the 1.5 kilometre course.
I got a good start, led from the beginning, which is what I like doing, rather than trying to overtake somebody, and got out there and kept the lead.
Joshua Eloy grabbed the silver medal, finishing 28 seconds in front of Kowalski, the former Olympic pool champion, admitting to feeling like a fish out of water.
Every now and again you put your head up, look for that wall. Obviously you got the surf coming through, and the fact that I'm not fit made it a lot tougher than I really expected, but it was fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun out there.
And in the women's, Lauren Parker outclassed world marathon swimmer Shelley Clark. They finished within 22 seconds of each other.
It was pretty choppy in the middle of the race, and when we caught up to the boys, they were like kicking us and everything, but no, it was fine.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Although far away from the controversy that surrounds his high-profile teammate Ian Thorpe, it meant Justin Norris's record-breaking swim went largely unnoticed. It didn't seem to bother him too much, backing up from Saturday night's success with a strong showing in the 200-metre butterfly heats today. Stopping the clock just inside the 2-minute mark, Norris, who won bronze in the same event at the Sydney Games, was the quickest ahead of tonight's semis, with the final tomorrow night. Two Hunter Valley speedsters start in the second round of the World Supersport Championship at Phillip Island at the weekend, with Kevin Curtin and Brock Parks starting on the front row of the grid. A pack of Australians tussled over the opening laps, with the lead changing several times before Curtin kicked away with young wildcard Joshua Brooks. The 37-year-old battled with the teenager for much of the back end of the race as they pulled clear of the field, and the young gun was turning heads both on and off the track. Riding like a seasoned veteran, he timed his final pass perfectly, with just a few corners left on the last lap. He hung on to win by a fraction of a second. Curtin second, Parks fourth, his first points for the championship.
As the clean-up continued this morning, locals finally got their beach back after a 2-week sacrifice, a sacrifice Surffest organisers say was well and truly worth it.
A lot of the visiting surfers say it's very special to be able to get a break like this for the 2-week period that we have to demand to have it for, but very appreciative of their support and everyone else's that made the event such a success.
Success which spilled beyond the realms of the beach and into businesses, where an estimated $2.5 million was spent over the 14-day period. And it's little wonder, especially given the 20,000-strong crowd which turned out for the Irons Beachley Clash alone, a one-on-one battle that will long be remembered.
On a world circuit, a woman surfing against the men, so I still think that's the benchmark set by this event, and I don't think anything else is going to take away from that.
Police say everyone was generally well behaved, with the only real crowd control required on the beach. It was a bumpy year too for entries, but the record field of 304 may never be broken, with organisers hoping to limit the number of competitors in coming years to avoid running two banks. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
It's 48 hours since the polling booths closed, but today the Lower Hunters state electoral officers were still working flat out. The rush is to sort ballot papers to be sent to Sydney tomorrow for the distribution of preferences. Preparations were also being made to receive postal votes, which have just closed. One Mayor-elect, thankful for his 54% of the vote, is Maitland's Peter Blackmore.
Those people have faith in me to do that role, and I'm just still getting over it. I'm still up on a high over it.
Cleared of sexual assault allegations last year, Peter Blackmore says the focus of his second 4-year term is continuing the growth currently underway across Maitland. Development, especially of Curry's Hunter Economic Zone, will be high on the agenda of neighbouring Cessnock Council. Returning Mayor John Clarence has job creation as a priority.
Our vision is to continue to bring that unemployment figure down, to continue to attract sustainable development.
With John Tate set to resume as Newcastle Lord Mayor and Greg Piper Lake Macquarie Mayor-elect, the region's 4 popularly elected council leaders are already talking unity regardless of politics.
I think all the mayors will work extremely well together. We did it over the last 4.5 years.
There shouldn't be these boundaries, and we realise that, and we set out to work together as a region, which in turn benefits our local area.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Sun, surf and swimming, they're the ingredients that attract so many international students to Newcastle every year. But they're also the cause of much concern, with Hunter Surf Lifesavers carrying out as many as 4,000 rescues each year, many of them for overseas visitors.
Some of the visitors come, they see the Australians using the beach, enjoying the beach, that's our playground. I think it's wonderful. They should be able to do the same, but they don't realise that there are rips, there are currents.
For the first time in the region, Hunter Surf Lifesaving has begun educating international students and those from regional areas about the dangers of the surf. The program was initiated following the recent tragic death of a Vietnamese student. The man was swimming right here in conditions similar to this when he was caught in a rip and drowned. Understanding beach signage, beach hazards, sun protection and first aid will be covered in the program, which will be held each semester.
A lot of mixed messages when they come into other countries, where in their own country they do see flags as the danger area, and they come into our country and see the flags and immediately think, oh, that's same as our country, and they swim outside the flags.
Colleen West, NBN News.
He just scored a 10-point ride in Sunday's Energy Australia Open. Then six-time world champion Kelly Slater struck some bad luck, snapping his board 5 minutes before the end of the final. But to the young onlookers, they'd struck gold, several wading out into the surf.
The Groms all swam out in the water and were like, "Can I have your board? Can I have your leash? Can I have your fins?" I'm going, "Hey, I'm trying to surf a heat here. Get out of my way for a second." But no, they were cool. They were stoked. You know, this kid ended up with both pieces of my board, and he's going to put it back together. So that's cool.
And that kid was Jake Sylvester. He took his most prized possession into the Junction Primary School today, his classmates in absolute awe.
I've been keeping it on my spare bed next to me. Sleep with it every night.
His mum Debbie was also at Surfest on Sunday. She couldn't believe her son's luck.
We looked at the big screen and Jake had taken off a bit further down the beach to collect the bigger... We didn't realise what he was doing, but he'd seen the bigger piece of the beach and he said, "Oh, Mum, I seen it." And he said, "I just pelted." And he said, I got it.
Jake, a huge Slater fan, plans on having the ultralight performance board repaired so he can ride one wave on it and then mount it on his bedroom wall.
Couldn't dream this. It was just unbelievable.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Eddie Loftus is leading a close race to be the next mayor of Greater Taree. His nearest rival, Deputy Mayor Wendy McHugh, is trailing by 218 votes. Newcomer Paul Hogan has polled well, followed by David West and Maeve Richardson. John Byrne is in 7th place, followed by Lance Sweeney, Winston Lattimore and Roger Riak. The council bench is also starting to take shape, with the bulk of the primary vote now complete. Eddie Loftus is again at the top of the poll. Newcomers Rod Maguire, Richard Wilson, Lance Sweeney and Alan Tickle are likely candidates, while Helen Hanna has just scraped through. However, preferences will decide the final outcome next week. Meanwhile, in the Great Lakes, Mayor John Chadban has tallied the highest primary vote, securing 3,099 votes.
I'm hoping and looking forward to another full term. I believe that I've got the runs on the board, I've got the qualifications to do it, I've certainly got the commitment and the interest, and by the look of it, I've got the support of the people.
The mayor will be decided at Council's first meeting on the 20th of April. After the primary vote, Councillors Wheat, Tuffy and Roberts look certain to return to the council bench, with new faces Vaughan Cookson and Jan McWilliams also likely candidates. Councillors Linda Gill and Lynette Laurie, along with newcomer Carol McCaskey, have an anxious wait. Their outcome will rely heavily on preferences. Over the mountain, and a new-look Gloucester Council has been elected. Mayor Barry Ryan has secured top votes. There's a few new faces in John Dugas, Jeff Slack and John Rosenbaum. The new council will meet on the 14th of April to elect its mayor. Philippa Lampe, NBN News.
Last year's schoolyard crossbow attack at Port Stephens was a graphic reminder that the school fence is no barrier to crime. Today, school principals met with police to talk about ways of handling incidents at school.
People murdered or attempted to be murdered in schools. There have been recent issues involving school children on school buses. All of those things impact on the wider community. They impact on people that are trying to educate young people today, and they impact and interface with policing.
Police can offer schools a range of services from youth liaison to traffic control and crime prevention.
Most of the kids are great most of the time. Where we have our biggest problems, I think, or where it's most obvious, is where we see a disintegration in family and community.
This is a great idea. I think that working together in this sort of partnership and understanding each other's problems is a great way to share our ideas and our problems and work together.
There's research that shows that people from poorer backgrounds don't go to university if you increase the fees. So Newcastle has one of the largest groups of people of low socioeconomic status attending our university. So yeah, it's going to affect our uni pretty badly.